And with that, we are live. Welcome in tonight. I know a little bit of a different camera view here tonight. I hope that everyone's okay with seeing my ugly mug a little bit closer than usual, but that's some technical difficulties there, but we will get that sorted out. All Eyes on Cleveland is a podcast that can be found where all popular podcasts are found, and the simulcast goes out to Facebook, Live, YouTube, and Periscope. Tonight, I want to bring in our first guest. We have a double guest tonight on this huge do or die week, Steelers week, win and get in week. George Wrighster III, former NFL tight end. He is on Mad Dog Radio on Sirius XM weeknights, 10 p.m. to midnight Pacific time. That's 1 a.m. to 3 p.m. Eastern. He is his podcast is Wrighster or Wrong, and you can find that at the unafraidshow.com. He is also on Fox Sports Radio. Welcome to the show, George.
Man, I'm excited to be here. I appreciate the invite.
Yes, absolutely. It's an honor to have you, sir. I've seen your work on TV, on Fox Sports 1, and all kinds of stuff. So you're a terrific guest for us to get tonight in a huge week, too, here. So important week in Cleveland. Lots of feelings going on around here in Browns fans, George.
Dude, you guys are close. You guys are close. It's been so long. It's so long since
it's so close.
Since you guys have had something notable to cheer about. I mean, it's been like since Bernie Kosar and who else? The return man, Eric Metcalf.
Eric's been on the show. Yep.
Yeah, you guys had some players, but it's been quite some time. And and truthfully, it doesn't seem like, the Hugh days were that long ago. So to get it turned around this quickly is good for the city, because they're some of the best NFL fans that there are, like Cleveland fans, Seattle, Kansas City, Chicago, like some really, really good fans. Green Bay, and
Buffalo.
Yeah, true. And so it's one of those, at this point, they can't let the city down. I know last week was tough because they didn't have any wide receivers. This week they're hit with a little bit of COVID because they shut down the facility today, and we don't know how things are going to turn out. So I think that would probably be the most deflating thing for Cleveland people, is to come this close to win 10 games and then not make the playoffs, and while you're playing against Mason Rudolph as a starting quarterback.
It goes right there, right? Mason Rudolph last year, a ton of storylines come up with all that stuff. We're going to dive deep into this stuff with you here, but I want to start off and get your kind of lay of the land here, okay, George? So let's start real quick with the college playoff this weekend. We got a lot of Ohio State fans that listen, I'm sure, that are listening. Thoughts on the college playoff, and does Ohio State have a chance?
Yeah, I mean, I think the chance today got a little bit better when Clemson's offensive coordinator and their play caller, he's out with COVID. So, I mean, mind you, that is a big deal. That's more of a bigger deal when you get into, those fine 3rd and 3 situations in the third quarter with a 3-point game. In those, like, it's only going to really make a difference in about 5 or 6 plays throughout the whole game, where he may have called something different or would not have, because good play callers, they work off feel a lot. Like, they have a script in the beginning of the game, but they understand and they kind of get a rhythm of what the other defensive coordinator is going to call. So it's a big guessing game. And mind you, there are other very capable play callers on staff for Clemson, because a lot of these guys for the top teams, they get poached off every single year to be head coaches elsewhere. So, or the coordinators elsewhere. So there's no pity party for Clemson. They have an embarrassment of riches. And same thing with Ohio State, when they were down a bunch of players and they went up to, who was it? Michigan State and played, and they, and half the roster was gone. No, nobody felt sorry for them. They still won by like 30. So Ohio State definitely has a chance. I think they're motivated. They have enough talent. The question is can their secondary hold up against Clemson? I mean, that's what it's going to be. I mean, and Clemson is a little more battle tested this year because they've played more games. But but when it comes to and that does matter because Ohio State, aside from the Indiana game, hadn't really gotten in any dogfights. You know what I mean? And so they got in a dogfight. Ohio State got in a dogfight against Indiana in the second half, but they hadn't really been pushed. And that's where teams, separate themselves. I think that's where Clemson won the game last year in the playoff was because it was Justin Fields' first time starting. He made a mistake in the end of the game, threw a pick, and Trevor Lawrence found a way when it counted. He ran the ball, whatever it is. Like winning quarterbacks find a way, and that experience is not nothing. It does count for something.
Absolutely. Yeah, so we're looking forward to that for sure. Obviously, I think that's a Friday night game, kind of odd. So we got that this weekend here. And then obviously on Sunday, a lot of NFL games all on Sunday, 6 of them still with playoff implications, so a ton of NFL still to play before the playoffs here. Who do you think right now is the best team in the AFC?
Oh, it's not even close. It's Kansas City, and then it's everybody else. But there are some teams that I do believe can give Kansas City trouble. But I think that they are, like, if you're saying who has the best team, and like if you're saying on paper who has the best weapons, who has the best situation, you would say the Kansas City Chiefs. Right. But does that mean that they will win a championship? Or that they will ultimately be the best team? Because during the regular season, they have been the best team. They're gonna they're 14-1. They would be 15-1 if they actually played all their players this week, but they're not even going to start Patrick Mahomes. So you have a 15-1 team. Nobody else has even lost less than 3 games. So yes, they are the best team. But during the regular season. But now I'm a person who always believes that when you get into the tournament, because people will say, oh, the best team, they didn't win. No, the best team always wins the championship when you get into the tournament, right? So you can tell me, oh, well, they were a 6 seed. The best team didn't win. No, the best teams win when it matters the most. They find a way to make plays. It doesn't matter how much talent you have. And the teams that don't, they weren't the best team.
It's a great point. The Bills are hot right now. I saw a lot for Josh Allen. Mm-hmm. He's kind of, the thing is, I saw some Mahomes-like throws, backing up, buying time, in that game. I'm not saying he's Patrick Mahomes, but he's playing some good football right now. I think they might have a more complete team, maybe on the defense side of the ball. We'll see what happens in the playoffs. I would love to see that matchup, though.
Oh, man, I'm a person, like there are a lot of people in broadcasting who say things or opinionists, and then when it comes down to the payoff on it and they're wrong, they either want to ignore they said it, they will delete the tweets or whatever. Not me. I'm a person who, when I have information, I make my opinions based on that information. But as soon as I get new information, I welcome a change of opinion, and I'll say I was wrong. I was completely wrong about Josh Allen. He was inaccurate in high school, was inaccurate in college, made bonehead mistakes in terms of throws and weird stuff his first 2 years in the league. Very weird. And I said he was a project. So I was right about he was a project. But Sean McDermott and their staff has turned this project into a winning deal. Like the kid is red hot right now. His confidence is on max. He's a top 6 quarterback in the NFL this year. And he has the Bills in position to not just make a playoff run, but they can win a Super Bowl. Like they are the one team that I look at and I say, "Ooh, if I'm the Kansas City Chiefs, I don't know if I want to play them again, buddy." That's a tough.
I wouldn't want to either.
Yeah, that's a tough matchup. Whereas The other teams in the AFC, so you have the Steelers, who are resting Big Ben this weekend. And I thought that was a terrible idea only because they won 11 straight games. Then they played 3.5 quarters of turd football, dude. Just atrocious football. They play one good half of football, and now you're going to basically mail in the game on some level. That doesn't, and you have a first round playoff game. That doesn't sound like a team that's, I mean, on some level, you have to trust Mike Tomlin because he is a really good coach. He's never finished below 500, been in the playoffs, won a Super Bowl. So you do have to trust him on some level to know his team. But maybe he's in a situation to where he's saying, yo, this team just needs a reset. Maybe we just need a week off because the week is not going to help us in terms of whether we're going to win or lose. So we just got to get focused for the playoff week. Like, let's see if we can be better that week. Maybe that's the answer for them.
This is a question I had for you later, so let's get to it right now about this exact issue. So no bye week for them, okay? Yep. They're the only team that really didn't have a bye week because they prepared all week long. They never had 4 straight days off is basically what, right? Because the COVID, they had to reschedule all that stuff, right? Yep. Okay, I got that. But they have played their worst football in the last, 3 games plus? 3 games and a half.
They were down 17
and a half of a quarter, right?
Yeah.
So they got about like 20 minutes of good football against the Colts. That's all it took to beat them. And the question now, because Mike Silver comes out with this report, right, that Randy Fichtner, basically Ben stopped listening to him and just started calling his own plays, drawing up plays in the sand, and then they start pushing the ball down the field, and that's how they came back and win. And this report comes out, that, the Colts were calling out his plays in the first half. He's been as predictable gets in this 3-game losing streak. And then they decide to sit them. That would be my only thing is if I'm Pittsburgh, if I'm Mike Tomlin, right, my only thing would be like, man, we really got to build off of this quarter, right, or this period, because before that, it was nothing. It was hard to watch for 3 games.
Yeah, so even play callers sometimes can fall into a little bit of a rut because, even really good play callers, and you just don't want it to happen at the wrong time. And the Colts are a good football team, and especially on defense. So they were able to game plan and scheme like they had a good feel for what the Steelers are going to do. I mean, if you've watched enough Steeler games, you know what they're going to do on 3rd and short. Because they can't run the football very well, they're going to try to quick pass out to the wide receivers on those 1-yard routes and just have the other guys block. And I mean, you have a good idea for what they're going to do. The question is, can you stop it? So the idea that Ben was out there calling plays and all, he wasn't drawing stuff up in the dirt. Sometimes a quarterback, especially veteran quarterbacks who've been around the block, they have a good idea of what they're seeing. So sometimes a coordinator can't see it quite as clearly as the guy on the field. So, I mean, look at when Aaron Rodgers called plays for the
McCarthy.
No. Yeah, when the quarterback played who went up to Seattle and got paid after that one game, he threw 7 touchdowns. It was so Aaron Rodgers was sitting out the last game of the season.
Oh, yeah, I know who you're talking about. Yeah. Oh, his name's escaping me right now. Go ahead, though. So, I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah,
so in that game, many people don't know it, but Aaron Rodgers called the plays in that game.
Was it Flynn?
Yes, Matt Flynn. Yeah. So Aaron Rodgers called the plays in that game. And so the whole point is that sometimes the quarterback can actually see things a little bit more clearly than the coordinator can, especially if they're a veteran guy. They have a really good handle on the offense. They can call it, especially if you know what the defense is going to do, because Ben was kind of speeding up, like they were going no huddle. And what what happens is that when you speed up and go no huddle, and the defensive coordinator, and he doesn't get a chance to get the play call in to the linebacker, and he doesn't have a chance to signal it or tell it to everybody else, the defense goes into a default coverage. Like they know what their number one or number two default coverages are. So if you're the quarterback and you figure that out, now you're saying, all right, we're not going to give them a chance to call any of their blitzes or stunts or anything like that. So I know what I'm playing against. So now I can, it's an equalizer, because if I can call the right plays against, if I know what they're going to run, I can then call the right plays. All I have to do is stop overthrowing people and throwing the ball in the dirt, and we'll be fine. So that's the situation that they were in against the Colts.
Yeah, they got them in a vanilla defense and just kept them in it and kind of. Yeah, for sure. The difference, though, for me, though, George, and you're listening to All Eyes on Cleveland with special guest George Wrighster III tonight of Mad Dog Radio on Sirius XM, the Nightcap. He's on there weekdays, 10 to midnight Pacific time, 1 a.m. to 3. That's my time. That's my time to listen to radio right there. 1 a.m. to 3 a.m. Eastern. Night out. Yeah, that's perfect. And then you can listen to his podcast anywhere popular podcasts are found. It's Wrighster or Wrong, and you can find that on the unafraidshow.com. He also is with Fox Sports Radio. We're thrilled to have him on the show here on All Eyes on Cleveland tonight, talking Browns Steelers, talking a little bit Steelers offense here. So with that offense, though, what I saw in that 3-game losing streak, and even before that, really, they don't really have a run game. Nope. When they brought Connor back, that kind of opened up the screen game for him, which is something that opened up in the second half of the Indianapolis game, as they started throwing it to him out of the backfield a lot, and that worked for them. Something that Snell really can't do. Yeah. But they really don't have a run game, and everything has been. You talked about what they are going to. Everybody knows what they're going to do. Everything is a short, underneath rubs, picks, slants, stops. Everything is in the curl and and in the flat, and that's all they run, really. I mean, they don't push the ball down the field at all. Yeah. For 3 straight weeks, and then Ben starts calling some plays to push down the field, and what do you know? He hits Deontay Johnson on a long one, Schuster on a long one, and they win. So it was interesting how all that happened. You wonder what they're going to go to. They got to be kind of rethinking things. Like, they've got to be like thinking like, we can't go into the playoffs with this dive dunk underneath all day stuff, right?
No, that's what they're listen. They always ride. They always leave the party with the person they showed up with. They may try to do something different for a couple plays to mix it up, but at the end of the day, when it's winning time, they're going to get back to what they do. Okay. Everybody does it. I mean, and the great play callers actually, they play the hits, and then they'll play a B-side every now and then and hit you over the head with it, and then that gets you guessing, which means that the A-side plays, that those will work even better because now hold up, that other thing that went for a touchdown earlier, or that they barely missed a touchdown earlier, that could be coming. So I got to watch out for that now. Oh, they do with the same thing I knew already. Damn
it. Yeah, absolutely. We feel like we've seen a lot of that from Stefanski in Cleveland this year, and we're going to get more to him in a minute here. But I want to ask you about Baker Mayfield real quick, okay? So the Browns I just saw this on my phone too, and I already have this question written down, but they have a decision to make in the offseason about their 5th-year option with him, right? Which is now fully guaranteed in the NFL. So you're writing a $20+ million check. Yeah. It's going to cash to a guy. Have you seen enough from him this year that if you're the Browns, you're comfortable doing that?
With the 5th-year option? Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I am 100% picking up his 5th-year option based on what I've seen this year. Am I giving him a long-term extension yet? Absolutely not. Right. I need to see another season of what I saw this year. And mind you, the best thing that's happened to Baker this year was Kevin Stefanski, except for the last game, running the football. I mean, just running it, and investing in the offensive line, which allowed Baker to sit back there comfortable in the pocket, and you allow him to manage the game instead of trying to be a superhero. Like Baker's not that guy who, at least at this point in his career, where he's a superhero. Ben Roethlisberger truly wasn't a superhero in the beginning of his career either. Their defense was so good. They ran the ball so well that then he was able to just manage the game and didn't have to be a hero. And then he's grown into that as he's gotten older and more seasoned in his career. So that's the route that I would take with Baker. He seems to be more focused, able to cut out the noise in the periphery, because he was a guy up to this season. If anybody chirped at him, oh, I got to respond. And it's like, no, dude, like let the people talk. You shut them up with your play, and not even where you're focused on, oh, I got to shut these people up. No, you focus in on your job, close out the noise, because people are going, if they know that they can bother you by questioning you or by saying stuff about you, then they're going to do it.
No question.
So until he got to the point where he could do it, then, I mean, but mind you, he's played pretty well this year. So he hasn't had any times where people are questioning it. I mean, people are still questioning Tom Brady right now after 6 Super Bowl. Oh, does he still have it? He can't throw the deep ball, all of this. And after every win, he's posting in Instagram videos like, hey, on to the next one. I mean, and they are shots at those people, but it's in the element of where it's clearly a shot at those people, but he does it in a way where he's focused on his team.
Yes.
So it's clearly at those people, but he's like, nah, we focused on us. And so I'm gonna give you something to chew on for this next week, and I like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think George, and tell me if I'm wrong, I think that Kevin Stefanski has made all the difference in the world for Baker. I mean, like he just has, as far as Stefanski goes, okay, hardly any offseason, comes in, new players, new team. I've seen evidence of culture change. I've seen buy-in from the Browns, and I've seen a quarterback that now is like seeing the game through the same lens as his play caller and offensive coordinator and his quarterbacks coach and Alex Van Pelt. But these guys have done a tremendous job with the offense. Stefanski keeps everybody off balance. He's done a tremendous job with the run game. And has got Baker playing, for a period there before this Jets game lost last weekend. He was in about 3-4 games in a row there where he was really, really hot. And I felt like they were in a groove there.
Well,
I
think it's tough for him to be in as good of a groove with no wide receivers, and then
exactly,
when Kevin Stefanski runs the ball like 18 times. No, he needs to add 20 to that. 38.
Yeah.
Like
that. Yeah, it got away from him. It got away from him a little bit for the first time. I mean, not the first time, but it really, for the first time in maybe the second half of the season, it got away from Coach a little bit, and his inexperience showed a little bit. But
that's okay, though, right? I mean,
yes.
in terms of when it happened, you want that to happen that week, last week. When your wide receivers are out, and now coach can say, hold up, damn, what the hell was I doing? I only ran the ball 18 times. What the hell was I thinking? And now he will be more cognizant of that, even against the Steelers this week. If they do make the playoffs, he'll play the hits instead of trying to, show up to the concert and play all the B-sides. And brother, you gotta play the hit first. That's what people came to see.
Yep, you're right about that. So I think that if he wins this weekend, he's a candidate for Coach of the Year and a legitimate one. What do you say to that?
Duh. Who could argue against a guy that literally took a team that was on their third head coach in 3 years? I mean, so you had Hugh Jackson, and then you had
Freddie.
Freddie Kitchens come in last year. The team was in disarray. Freddie wasn't playing the best people. He was more concerned about, and like everybody was doing a CYA job and like trying not to get fired instead of just not worrying about that and just doing the right things over and over and over again. And Freddie just didn't have the experience. Like it's like that quote that says, people get promoted to the level of their incompetency. Like, and he was not ready to be a head coach yet. That doesn't mean he's not a good play caller, that he's not a good coach. Just means that he got promoted to a level that he wasn't equipped to be yet. I mean, so as far as coach of the year, I would, in any other situation, I would put, if the Browns make the playoffs, I would put Kevin Stefanski as my number one in terms of coach of the year. But these are special circumstances.
Okay.
The man who's going to win coach of the year if his team makes the playoffs is going to be Ron Rivera. The man battled cancer all year.
Yes.
I mean, like that's just, it is what it is. I mean, it's like last year where Russell Wilson had an MVP year, but then here comes Lamar Jackson with one of the greatest seasons ever. So and Ron Rivera, he would have dealt with quarterback issues. I mean, just saboteurs, the name change, the stuff coming out about the owner, the number one pick having to cut him, battling cancer. I mean, he's going to win coach of the year if they make the playoffs. So, that's not a knock on Kevin Stefanski, but circumstances are just going to dictate that he's not going to win it.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think, Brian Flores, his name will be in there too. Oh,
geez, Louise. I didn't even think about BF, dude.
Yeah.
That's okay. See, when you think about, I don't know how I forgot about Flores because, I'm going to still give I would still give the edge to Ron Rivera, but Miami, if they make the playoffs too, that's going to be an outstanding situation for Brian Flores too, because nobody had them winning enough games to make the playoffs. They're like, they'll finish 7-9, 6-10. It'll be an improvement. But now you're looking at them saying, if Fitzpatrick, because their defense is probably the best defense in the AFC probably, and or at least top two. And you're saying, all right, if I don't know why they're still starting Tua, because I know he's their future.
Neither.
He's their future, but it's like that they want to play him so bad because Herbert is playing so well and Burrow's playing so well. But look at Aaron Rodgers; he sat for 3 years. That doesn't mean that Tua sucks. It just means that he's still your future, but your best opportunity to win right now is for Fitzpatrick to get hot. And you can't the fourth quarter when you haven't scored enough points, because eventually you run out of chances. You run out of rabbits to pull out of the hat. And that's where, and hopefully for Miami, because I have some friends on that staff that they do the right thing. That maybe if Tua isn't playing well early in the game, because mind you, he's not turning the ball over. He had 17 completions I think it was 17 for 22, but then you're like 94 yards. How the hell do you complete 17 passes for 94 yards?
Yeah. I almost feel like they're like, okay, let's go out and try to run the ball and stick to our game plan. But if we fall behind, it's got to be Fitzpatrick. I would start Fitzpatrick anyways because I feel like he gives you the best chance to win no matter what.
Because if he gets hot, you can win the Super Bowl.
Yes. Yeah.
If he goes on a 4-game Fitz magic, which he's shown he can do. If he goes Fitz magic for 4 games, you have won the damn Super Bowl. But if he goes, quarterback from Harvard on you, then
Fitz tragic. Yeah.
But
Yeah, so that's a good one. You know, those guys have done an incredible job, all of them. The only thing, and you're right about Ron Rivera, it's just so hard to put a team with that record as the coach of the year. Now, the record hurts.
Yeah, that's going to be, I think, a lot of people who would vote for Ron Rivera, I think that's going to be the thing that changes it. You know, that they're going to say, hold up, one of these teams is going to have 11 wins. You know, either so okay, so I am going to amend what I said a little bit. I do think that Ron Rivera is going to win, especially if they win this weekend, and then they're 7-9.
Yeah, and they're in.
Yeah, and they're in the playoffs. I think that Ron Rivera does win it because of his cancer situation. But I do think that it is possible that the winner, that if Cleveland or Miami makes the playoffs, right? That if Cleveland is in, Miami's out, that Stefanski wins. But if Miami's in and Cleveland's out, then Flores wins, because I think that they may take votes away from each other if they both get in the playoffs, and then that may trade Ron Rivera. But if one of them in or out, then they could possibly win it as well.
You're right, because there's a certain faction of guys that are just going to vote Ron Rivera no matter what.
Yep.
And because of his story. And you're right, they will take votes away from each other. You're absolutely right. That's a great point. You're listening to All Eyes on Cleveland here with George Wrighster III. We'll wrap things up here. I got a couple more questions for you, okay? All right. There's a possibility that the Browns and Steelers, say the Browns win, the Steelers are playing their backups. The Browns are 10-point favorites. They should win. If they handle their business against their backups and run the ball early and get ahead, they should win the game and get in, right? At least that's how I feel. And if they get in, there is a 50-some-odd% chance they play the Steelers again the next week in the wild card in Pittsburgh.
Yep.
How does that change your approach if you're the Steelers or the Browns? I don't think it changes for the Browns because it's win and get in, and you do everything you got to do, right?
Yep.
But for the Steelers, how does that change your approach?
I think it gives a little bit more of an advantage toward the Steelers because the Browns have to throw their normal stuff at you.
Yeah, they got to throw everything at you.
Yeah. And so you're going to see what you're going to see in all likelihood the next week for the most part, because they're going to run what they think they can exploit in your defense. So, but at the same time, for the Steelers, that means you have to run what you would normally run on your defense. So if you go to these vanilla coverages and you don't run your stuff, you're not going to have as much information for the next week.
Yeah, absolutely.
So this is where coaching matters and tactics matter. So whoever staff either gathers the most information or handles this week the best, if they meet the first round of the playoffs, they're going to be at the best advantage.
Yeah.
So
you're right.
Yeah, this is going to be the week where the Steelers coaches, they're going to be preparing for this week, but they're going to be also spending a lot of time focused on who they're going to play in the playoffs and their potential matchups, breaking down film for different teams, starting to put a preliminary game plan together for each of these teams. Yep. So we will see, because I don't want to make a prediction on that, just because but I will say whichever staff handles this week the best is going to be the victor the week after if they do play.
Yeah, I feel like it's a huge advantage for Pittsburgh in that way, because they can almost kind of play with you a little bit. Like, hey, what if we do this to you in this situation? Or what if we do that to you? And if we get burnt, oh well, but we're going to find out, what your tendencies are when we throw this at you or that at you, right?
Good point.
And that's I think that's an advantage for them, but certainly something that they'll think of and go after. All right, so biggest thing for the Browns in this game for me is they got to jump on them early. It's got to be if you let them stick around, their backups are players too.
Yep.
They're going to have nothing to lose. It's a tough situation. It's a pressure cooker because it's like a must win. You should win. You're favorited, and you're playing a bunch of guys that have a chip on their shoulder and have nothing to lose and want to beat you, and that's it, right?
Well, here's the thing about NFL games, though. There's only 53 guys active. So you can't even rest all your starters.
Right?
They'll rest Ben, they may rest Connor or give him limited action, but you're probably going to see some combination still of Claypool, Juju, James Washington, and Deontay Johnson. Like, you're still going to see those. I mean, those are 4 wide receivers. They can't sit them all because there's you only carry teams only carry between 7 and 9 wide receivers. So you can't even run all your stuff. And what happens if somebody gets hurt?
Yep.
So it's one of those, like, your top guys may play limited action, but you can't just bench all of them because you don't have enough backups. And then you have to play special teams plays, and those guys are going to have to play on defense or offense and then play special teams. They get tired too. So it like, the NFL is unique because you can't truly rest all your starters. Like, you can rest your most important players or guys who are a little bit banged up. Like, Kansas City is going to rest Mahomes. He needs to sit back and see things from the outside for a minute. I think he does need a week off. Tyreek Hill was nursing a hamstring last week, so you give him the week off. But and then I may sit Kelsey, but aside from that, nah. Everybody else, and maybe Chris Jones on the defense, but aside from that, everybody else,
yeah. I wonder. I know they made some moves on their practice squad. I wonder if they'll call up a couple guys and maybe not even dress a couple of the starters. You got to think like Hayward on the defense. There's a lot of 30-plus guys on the Steelers, right?
Yep.
And no bye week. I think, maybe not. I don't know about Watt, but it feels like Watt and Hayward and maybe Joe Hayden on the defense might get a rest.
I mean, that now you're looking at what, 5-6 players, and if you make them, and I mean that's really the max in terms of your inactives. So everybody else got to play, brother. Yeah. Or at least be available for backup duty. But the problem with that is that if you put one of your best players, you don't have him play for 3 quarters, and then he has to go in the game and he pulls a hamstring or something because he's cold, you would have been better off just playing him sparingly throughout the game and just kind of keeping him warm. So it's a interesting situation for coaches to handle. And over the years, some have handled it better than others, and those who are winning football games.
Yep. All right, last question here for you, George. What's the biggest key for the Browns to win this game on Sunday? What do they have to do?
Number one, don't turn the football over.
Yep.
Do not give it to them, because if you give it to the Steelers, they are a tough team. They have a lot of confidence. They will want to beat you. Mason Rudolph has something to prove against Myles Garrett. That's going to be a story that I'm excited to see as well.
Yeah.
So don't turn the football over and just make the plays that you're supposed to make. You don't have to be a hero. Just catch the ball on 3rd down. Don't miss layups for Baker. That means when you get a guy wide open, don't miss him. Just play your regular football game. You don't even have to play mistake free. Just don't turn the football over and you will be A-okay.
Yeah, play a clean game. Don't play behind. They can't play behind the sticks all the time. No, watch penalties and turnovers. That's what I'm thinking. And run the ball.
And for Baker, I would say stay within himself.
Yep.
Don't get to, this is the last game, I got to be the hero. No, just do the same thing that you did 3 weeks ago.
Absolutely. George, you were fantastic. I appreciate your time. I probably kept you a little longer than I told you, but you were the best. And hopefully we can have you on again soon, maybe sometime.
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Hit me up.
absolutely. Former tight end, Fox Sports Radio. Go to the unafraidshow.com or where all popular podcasts are found to get Wrighster or Wrong, the podcast. He is on Mad Dog Sports Radio's The Nightcap, weekday nights, 10 to midnight Pacific time, 1 a.m. to 3 a.m. Eastern. George, you're a gentleman and scholar, and I enjoyed your time.
All right, perfect. All right, thanks, Matt.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Okay, too.
Big thanks to George Wrighster III, Fox Sports Radio, Sirius XM. Go to theunafraidshow.com or check out his podcast, Right or Wrong, where all popular podcasts are found. Second guest is ready. We're going to bring him in right now. His name is Rudy the Rude Dog Reyes. He is the host of The Rude Dog Show. He covers the Pittsburgh Steelers. He is a Steelers aficionado. Rudy, what's up, my man?
What's going on? Thanks for having me on the show. I appreciate it, Brad.
Yes, sir, brother. It's great to have you. I don't know if you saw George, but George was great. Do you know George?
I am connected with George on social media and on Twitter explicitly, all because I asked him to follow me back, and sure enough, here we are.
Yeah, how about that? Back to back here. So that was cool. I remember, he was on TV for a while on Fox Sports 1, which was kind of cool. So
yeah,
but we got Rudy Reyes, the Rude Dog. Is it the Rude Dog Show? Tell people about the Rude Dog Show, where all popular podcasts are found.
There's a lot of good stuff. I've been doing this for about 9 years now. I built my own website. I basically woke up at the age of 40 and decided to get into broadcasting. So everybody can go to therudedogshow.com and look at 9 years of work with lots of interviews, conversations, topics, things some people don't want to hear about and others people should hear about.
TheRudeDogShow.com. There it is. Awesome. Very cool. And we're thrilled to have you on All Eyes on Cleveland. Huge week, massive week. This is the do or die special, right? You win and you're in. You lose, and it's like we're all in our feelings here in Cleveland. We're all in our feelings right now, man, and it's tough. So, we had the chance with the Jets just to have a nice, easy, get in the playoffs, end this drought from 2002, and now we got to go up against the Steelers. But the Steelers are starting Mason Rudolph, okay? If you were in charge, would you be starting Mason Rudolph, or would you be going with Ben and starters?
Well, when you look at Ben Roethlisberger and some of the miscues in the first half of that game on Sunday, it was just an absolute debacle. And then the corrections were made in the second half, like most very good teams do. They make those adjustments defensively, offensively, play calling, maybe calling out some players, saying, hey, look, you're playing a little soft. You need to step up to the plate. I think it's more about what the Steelers are trying to accomplish in regards to giving Ben a little bit of time off. Of course, everybody knows, if you haven't seen it already, the replay of that helmet hit by Myles Garrett, you can go either way with that, saying that, Mason Rudolph antagonized him to a point where he did it, and or Myles Garrett just decided to take it upon himself based out of frustration and gameplay to take it out on Mason Rudolph by hitting him with his own helmet. So starting Mason Rudolph is really a good way to go for the Steelers. Whether or not he shows up, that happens on any given Sunday. I rather would have started Josh Dobbs, but again, Josh Dobbs' late re-addition back to that 53-man where he stays on the sidelines until maybe something happens. He could be the designated backup to Mason Rudolph because Ben, per Mike Tomlin, is not playing.
Not dressing, I don't think. Is he going to dress? I don't think so.
No, he's going to be in sweat. I don't blame him.
It's going to be. There you go. Well, it sounds like he should be calling plays because, according to Mike Silver, he had enough in the second half of that Colts game and said, "Sorry, Randy, I'm done with the play calling," and took it upon himself to call most of that second half. I guess the rumor is the Colts players were calling out Randy's play calls in the first half, so on the field. I don't know how it's Mike Silver. I don't put a lot into what he has to say, but either way, this is the report coming out. What do you have to say to that? I mean, really, he was running like a 2-minute. He just kind of got in a hurry up and kind of got in a groove. So, of course, he's going to be calling some of the plays. I think a lot has probably made more of it than there was. But they did start to push the ball down the field, which Randy Fichtner has not done for 4 weeks, Rudy. I've watched this dink and dunk underneath stuff. It's hard to watch, man. It's hard to watch.
Yeah, it's really it's not very palatable. I'll be honest with you. When I look at the play calling, I look at the audibles that Ben calls at the lines. It just makes you wonder exactly what that looks like and whether or not it's going to be productive the minute it leaves Ben Roethlisberger's hands. Don't forget, he did have that season-ending elbow injury with the Tommy John over the offseason, and in turn coming back to lead his team to 11-0 and faltering with the last 3 games, riding the ship against the Colts. And I don't know that play calling has been there for Randy Fichtner the entire time, to be quite honest with you. I understand dink and dunk when you have Devlin Hodges or when you have Mason Rudolph or you're running quarterback by committee. I get it. I understand that. The problem is that it just does not appear as though there's any fluidity in the running game as we've seen in the last 3 and maybe even the 4th game with guys not inserted. Benny Snell was playing, not a lot of production there. But this turning from the running style old school Steelers team to now a pass happy free for all Steelers team. And we see this pass first situation throughout the NFL, whether or not you're talking about the Kansas City Chiefs, clearly it happened to the Bucs on Sunday. There's just so much to unpack in regards to what Randy Fichtner is going to call in this game with Mason Rudolph. Now, in all fairness, Randy Fichtner hasn't called an absolutely horrible season thus far. However, in those 3 losses, I think that he maybe lost a little bit of touch there. And I think defensively with the loss of Bud Dupree on that line, as well as losing Devin Bush, the guy who's a sideline to sideline kind of guy, was absolute tragedy, to be quite honest.
And then they lost.
Really modify that.
They lost Spillane too, right? Didn't they lose Spillane, his backup? I mean, that's crazy. The injury bug on the defense there has gotten crazy. We're kind of in COVID alert right now here in Cleveland. Closed the building today. You got, out of all these guys, there's only 2 positives, but all the close contacts and everything else. But so far, the word is that the 2 guys are positive. I was trying to keep track. I was going to go over it later, but I'll mention it now.
Ultimately, what they're doing is they're going through contact tracing. When you do contact tracing, that means that the people that were the closest to these infected players, I know it was a special teams coach or a coach within the coaching system there. Yeah. And then a special teams player was also found to be part of that contact tracing as well. So 2 more people, whether or not they were significant or not significant, it doesn't matter because we don't know who was close to them and we don't know who was close to them. So it's one big daisy chain of effects that have closed this Cleveland Browns locker room and training facility right now. I don't know who they're going to dress or who they're not going to dress. I know they just got a guy off of the injury list, a safety. I'm trying to recall his name, but now he'll be in action. So it certainly begs the question as to whether or not the Steelers are going to get the full-blown Browns team that you're accustomed to seeing this season versus seeing some sloppy mess on the field. I had one guy who's also a Cleveland fan wanting to jump on the bandwagon with a lot of look. I've been waiting a long time for the Browns to get in this, and you're right, but he's not the only one who's been waiting. Browns Nation has been waiting forever as well, so he's not the only one, and certainly not the odd man out.
Yeah, it's certainly it's a lot of anticipation for this time, and it kind of sucks that it worked out this way. That I just wanted them to play each other, but hey, if the Browns could find a way to just handle their business and they should beat Mason Rudolph. I don't think that much of him as a quarterback. We'll see what happens, but I feel like they should beat them depending on the COVID issues, right? Let's see who they come to the field with, but they should be getting Ronnie Harrison back. If they get Wyatt Teller back, I'll feel a ton better. And, then the offensive line they had to put out there last week, no wide receivers last week. It was brutal. We'll see what happens. So far, Sendejo is out. Good riddance to him. Play Carl Joseph and these guys. So far, it sounds like they should be ready unless they come up with positive tests. We'll see. Who knows? Like you said, who is around who, and the closer we get, further we get in the week here, like starting tomorrow, if they come up in a contact tracing, I don't think they'll be able to play, right? So You're cutting it pretty close here with this stuff. You want to get like a clean day of negative tests and feel like you get some separation from that trip where they definitely had a positive guy, maybe in his incubation period with the virus, traveling with the team, which is I'm sure what led to some of this, right?
Quite possibly, because if you're in a jet plane, you're in close quarters. Yes. You're only allowed a certain amount of recycled air, not fresh air, recycled air, and that recycled air can travel throughout the plane. So that could have been, it could have happened in a myriad of ways. There's no way to really put the point the finger at someone, say, you know what, this is what happened, this is the situation, this is who, when, how, and why. So we really don't know. But yes, you're definitely on point, Brad, when you're talking about people getting that contact tracing, and they're the ones being pinned and ultimately being the ones held out. And sadly, that's exactly what happened to the Browns last week. As far as offensively, in regards to what they're going to do, I like that People Jones. He is no joker. That guy is fast. He's elusive. He's a playmaker. There's a lot of great things that I see from him individually. Baker Mayfield, on the other hand, there were some things that I've seen from him that I actually liked. The problem is that he still has a tendency to overthrow. He has a tendency to misread defenses. He has a tendency to hold on the ball a little bit too long. I understand this is his third year and what have you, and then that's, it is what it is. But at the same token, you got to know when to curtail that, and hopefully he'll have a better outing against this tackle for loss, sack happy Steelers defense with T.J. Watt on the outside looking to pummel Baker Mayfield, which he's done all season long, and leads the league in sacks. You would think Aaron Donald would have that luxury, but no, T.J. Watt.
Yeah, or Myles Garrett even, right? So here's my question: Is you expect T.J. Watt to play on Sunday?
I think so, because look, if you're a hot player and you're on and you're ready to rock and roll, you've already shown consistency. It'd be different if you were maybe a third round part of that linebacker rotation, or maybe you were the second or third man up in that edge rushing rotation. You're not going to see that kind of look. And to be quite honest with you, the Steelers defense has just been going after quarterbacks all season long. So do I foresee TJ Watt playing? Yeah. Do I see him playing the whole game? Probably not. I think that really depends upon the score, depends on his production, and really how he feels. They're gonna sit some starters. There's no question. And you're not gonna have a bunch of scrubs out there, because Lord knows that you give Cleveland breathing room, and they're gonna exploit it and take advantage of it and end up finding themselves in the playoffs.
Yeah, definitely. That's what I was looking at, is kind of like, all right, who are they going to sit on the defense? And I thought maybe Hayward, because there's a group of Steelers on this team, and it's part of what makes them so gritty and tough, that are 30-plus years old, right? So Joe Hayden, you wonder, like, if he would need a rest. No bye week this year because of COVID got you guys there. They never had 4 days off in a row all year. Tomlin is treating this kind of like their bye week, right? You think a lot of the veterans would rest, but as George made a really good point when he was on, the NFL roster, you can only rest so many people just because there's only so many guys. Most of your guys are going to have to play.
Right. And that's exactly right. So I think you're going to sit the older guys. You may sit Cam Hayward a little bit. Maybe he'll onto it here and there. Ben Roethlisberger may be sitting out a little bit. They could have Hassenauer in over Pouncey. under center. But you're going to see Mason Rudolph probably throughout the entire game, barring something completely tragic happening. And or on the plus side of that, Mason Rudolph actually looks like the draft pick the Steelers picked when they nabbed him out of Oklahoma. So when you look at the age of the Steelers defense, they're going to have to get a little bit younger. You mentioned Joe Hayden, and I mentioned this on other podcasts. Mika Fitzpatrick has been the absolute highlight, highlight reel, human highlight reel from last year even onto the regular season this year. And what's really interesting is that you see these coverage breakdowns, and when you look at Mika, he's not in a natural position because you had Joe Hayden Hearn. So Mika had to hybrid free safety, and cornerback in various plays against the Colts. You've seen it against Washington, all types of open field right down the middle. And Mika had to do his absolute best to do it. Now, don't forget, he was drafted that way into the Miami system. And when I interviewed him when he was drafted by the Dolphins, his whole moniker was, look, you play me, I'm happy, I'll do what you need me to do. He did that in Miami, but he was playing out of position. You get him to Pittsburgh, this guy's a Pro Bowler. And that's ultimately what happened.
He's been amazing in Pittsburgh, absolutely changed that defense immediately. I hear people second guess that all the time, right? Giving up that first round pick and they point to people that will second guess it will point to Roethlisberger's age and say, hey, that was an opportunity to get your quarterback of the future. And I say, listen, man, in football, it's not like baseball or basketball. It doesn't carry over year to year to year. You got to take your shots when you got them. And if you got a quarterback like Roethlisberger and a defense like they have, I'm all for spend a first-round pick and go for it all, right? Right now. And I feel like that's what the Steelers are doing. And I felt like that's what they did with that pick. And I think it was smart.
Right. No, you're absolutely right.
Yeah, so and they got a good shot this year. This week, Ben will get healthy. Let me ask you this question. I watched the Steelers game back, parts of it, mostly the second half of the Colts game. They keep getting stopped on short yardage stuff, right? I've seen this a couple times in the 3-game losing streak, and then again in the first half and the second. It happened once in the second half too. Of the Colts game, where they're goal line to go at 1 yard line and they can't get it in, right? It's happened a number of times. Why don't they? Is Tomlin against QB sneaking Roethlisberger? I've never seen him do it.
Well, I think that's more that's. I think there are certain plays that the Steelers run that allow for Ben to call the audible at the line, and what happens is that when he calls that audible, he's going to call himself in whatever manner, whatever terminology that they use in order to designate himself as being the runner. And I think part of that can be seen from the sidelines, and that's where Mike Tomlin or Randy Fiegner says, no, this is going to be a little pooch pass. It's going to be a little dink and dunk in the corners, maybe a little bit over the top or what have you. I think Mike Tomlin at some points in some regards, in some ways, and of course he's going to deny it till the sun comes up. But kind of lives in his fear in regards to play calling. I think that's one of the reasons why he had given the offensive control to Randy Fiegner, because Randy has been around in the organization for a very long time. Almost reminds me of Santa Claus, only from the standpoint that he's got a beard that's super long and it's white. His hair is white. Where's the Santa Claus beanie? But anyway, I think when you look at the play calling, some of it is suspect, especially in third and short, second and short. But where Ben really kind of saved the day against Indianapolis to come back winning that game 28-24 was the double pumps. It had everything to do with those pump fakes. When you put those pump fakes together, it gets that defender to double step, and when you double step a defender, that wide receiver now has another foot to 2 feet in front of him in order to make that play. I think when you look at Ben Roethlisberger overall, is he going to play football until he can't play football anymore? Quite possibly. Is he following the Tom Brady mantra in regards to, I'll know when to sing when, and when that is, I guess you'll know when I know. And I think that's exactly what Ben Roethlisberger is going to do. Could he play another year or two? Maybe. But they need to beef up that offensive line. I haven't been very happy or impressed with Alejandro Villanueva for a lot of reasons, because he's allowed Ben to get sacked on that left side, but that's not his natural position. Natural position is on the right side of that line of scrimmage. And there's just been a lot of times where Ben, yes, has held on to the ball too long, but that's Ben Roethlisberger. That's exactly what you get. Ben is Ben. Ben plays Ben. That's what he does. That's what he knows. So it's actually a good time right now to rest him, give Mason Rudolph some reps, allow him to, allow the team to kind of overview and look to see if whether or not he's going to stick around for a while, or he could be on his way out and you keep Josh Dobbs and you go nab a quarterback in free agency. But I think as long as you have Ben Roethlisberger in it, you have a chance.
Mm-hmm. I agree. So here's an interesting question for you, and I think I probably know the answer to this, but you know Mike Tomlin probably better than, you've listened to him a lot more than I have, or probably know his philosophies a lot better than I have. But so there's a possibility that if the Browns were able to find a way to win on Sunday, that they would play each other again the following week in Pittsburgh in Wild Card Weekend. It's like it's up there, right? It could be one of the possibilities if the Browns win. Now they're going against Mason Rudolph. They're 10-point favorites. I feel like they should beat Mason Rudolph. We'll see. Does Tomlin go into this game, even though he's playing Mason Rudolph, like, hey, we're beating him, we're not going to play him again? Or is it like, will they approach this strategically, like, hey, let's throw this at him, in case we do have to face him again? Let's see what we get when we do this or that, right? Like, kind of gain that advantage.
Well, I think you're going to really have to. It's going to depend on a couple of things. It's going to depend on quarterback play and how he
Game
plays
script
right off the bat. That also has to do with play calling, how he picks up those play calls, and how he's able to actually ad lib, like we've seen Ben Roethlisberger do for the last 15 plus years in the NFL, and whether or not he can read those defenses and make those throws without trying to force something that does not exist. So I think they're going to ease him into play calling duties. Do they have something different in mind for Mason Rudolph? That really depends on whether or not Mason Rudolph can pick up on what's being called. So they're going to have a sheet A and a sheet B. And if he can't get a hold of sheet A, they're going to move to sheet B and make this another dink and dunk situation against Cleveland. However, with that being said, that running game needs to be established regardless of, and that offensive line needs to do a much better job overall and down the stretch, to be quite honest with you. There's only 3 Super Bowl winning players on that offensive line with DeCastro, Pouncey, and Ben Roethlisberger. Well, Ben's not going to be there, so you have Pouncey and DeCastro. Both of those guys are going to have to really step up. They could be getting close to the end of their leash in regards to being on that offensive line. That depends on gameplay, purely and simply. So I think Mike Tomlin will have a very strategic type of play calling for Mason Rudolph. And then again, if plan A doesn't work, they'll go to plan B and use that.
Yeah, so you're kind of saying it's game script dependent, right? So kind of how the game goes will judge how they approach it. My feeling is that the Browns, if they let this game linger around with Mason Rudolph, they have a chance of losing it, because it is a pressure cooker for the Browns. And I feel like the Steelers are playing, and the guys that will be on the field will be playing, especially in the half, with nothing to lose, right? Even if you have second stringers, third stringers in, they got a lot to prove, nothing to lose, and the Browns got everything to lose. And they're going up against Mason Rudolph, and everybody says, okay, you should win this game and get in the playoffs, because they're not playing Ben. And that's like just a lot of pressure. I expect Stefanski to have them ready. They haven't lost 2 games in a row all year. They've been able to bounce back. I feel like they should win this game if they stay with the run early, and I want Cleveland to jump on Pittsburgh early and almost make this like easy on both sides. All right, okay, let's get our starters out and we'll see what, that's my ideal scenario, and it just kind of cruise to whatever, but that's probably not how it's going to go. It's probably going to be a close game, and certainly Pittsburgh knows how to keep it close in these situations, even with Mason Rudolph out there, who I think that the Browns have to, if they want to win this game, they have to get a couple takeaways from Rudolph. And if he plays a clean game, I think it'll be a close game. What do you think about that?
Well, to be honest with you, if Mason Rudolph doesn't get hit a couple of times to kind of get him into game mode, right? Because you got to knock the dust off. Just because you're on a practice squad, just because you're playing practice is not real time ball. Practice is practice. That's all it is. But the minute you get on that field and it's real time, it's game time, it's showtime. And I think that you have to knock him around a little bit to shake that dust out and get him mentally acclimated to the game and game speed. And once you do that, Mason Rudolph could actually be quite deadly, especially when he, shooting over to his ex-Sooner partner in James Washington, which we had seen last season in glimpses where Mason Rudolph would throw these 35, 40-yard bombs to James Washington because they connected that in college. So I think you're going to see a little bit of that chemistry. Could be some play calling in regards to pairing up him along with Mason Rudolph. But what you're going to see, I believe, based on what I've watched, again, it's all gameplay. It's all gameplay and purely gameplay. You're going to see Mason Rudolph go to short to Clay over the middle. And when I say Clay, I mean Claypool, Chase Claypool. And you're going to see him go to Smith-Schuster as the third option. They need a fourth option. I've still yet to believe that the punt returner is going to be that fourth option, to be quite honest with you. But we're going to see. Cloud has done some pretty good things on punt returns. He's got a lot of energy. I've seen him in certain offensive formations. He's very fast. He's a fleet of foot, really, is what it boils down to. He's kind of like the Mike Hilton of the offensive system, really, because he's got that dagger shoot kind of speed. And he's very quick, and he's not tall, but he's quick and he's fast. So you're going to see a little bit of that gameplay. I think the Browns will end up keeping it close. I got Pittsburgh winning by a field goal, and that's about it. If it was Ben Roethlisberger, I'd say a touchdown, maybe. But Mason Rudolph for center, I'm going to give it 3.
So you expect Mason to play pretty well then?
I think it's really about quarterback play. It's really about what he gets acclimated to, what he picks up. Does he call audibles at the line? Is he going to switch it up to something that he's familiar with, that he's accustomed to, that he's sure it's going to produce some type of positive results the minute that ball snapped into his hands? Mason's going to have a pretty decent game. I don't know about a fantastic game because this Browns defense has been known to be stingy when they really put their mind to it and able to be pick happy. I don't know that they're going to get that opportunity, especially if the running game does not get established. You become predictable in all phases, especially offensively. And if Mason's throws something like a little curveball or what have you, and that's all there is pass, and then run, and then pass, and then a run, you become a little predictable. So I think the Browns defense and Stefanski's done an absolute fantastic job. I don't think people are really talking about what kind of job he's done this season. But I think moreover, when you look at last season, what Mike Tomlin had to contend with and not named coach of the year is absolutely preposterous. He had to deal with a quarterback on IR the entire season, balanced 2 quarterbacks, one who had just been drafted, not necessarily drafted, but he was just picked out of thin air in Devlin Hodges out of like a practice squad situation. Mason Rudolph was already on the roster. He had to balance that. He had to balance the team. He had to balance defense. I mean, Mike Tomlin, that guy is so high strung. I don't even know how he sleeps at night, but I can tell you this much. In the playoffs, that's exactly what I would do is sleep. If I had the ability to sleep else Mike Tomlin, I would take a nap or 2 if I could, because this whole run is going to be very, very, very difficult, very tough. It goes through Kansas City because they're the number 1 seed. But the Steelers are no stranger to this. They've been on the road before. They've been there, done that. They were 6th seed before in the 04-05 season. So it's not as if they don't know what that's like. However, the Browns getting to the playoffs means more to Cleveland than I think even fans are aware of, because that means that Stefanski comes in at a time putting all these pieces around them, all these wonderful defensive components, offensive components, special teams guys. You have Myles Garrett, who's done absolutely fantastic work this season. You put all these pieces together, and to not get into the playoffs, I can tell you this much: no head coach that I'm aware of for the Browns system has won 10 games in the last 10, 20 years. So
Well, yeah. Last time was Romeo Crennel in 2007, and they didn't get in, and they didn't get in that year. So, you know, it's kind of fitting that they have to get to 11 this year to get in, right? So, but if you would have told me at the beginning of the year that with the way the offseason went and Stefanski, you know, stepping in, you know, still installing their offense like 2 days before the season starts because of the time constraints and everything, that they would be able to win 10 games and be in a position to get in the playoffs at this point, I would have taken it in a second. I think he's been fantastic. I can see the culture change. I can see the buy-in from the players. And he, as a play caller, he's been tremendous. So, you know, he really, after the bye week, when they got hot there for a couple of weeks, when they beat Tennessee and then the Giants back-to-back there, and they kind of, you know, blew Tennessee out in the first half, whatever. The pass game, run game, him playing off his tendencies and setting guys up. He's just been really good at that all year. The game got away from him last week in New York. No wide receivers, all that stuff. And I think he kind of overcompensated and got away from it, maybe overthought it a little bit. But other than that, he's been really good. We feel like we have the guy for, you know, finally have the coach that we can keep for a long period of time. And I feel like
the culture's changed too, though, Brad. The
yes.
culture's changed. The mindset has changed. The culture's changed. The attitude is changing. I just think that, you know, winning cures all wounds. You could probably agree with me there that winning will be the ultimate decision maker in regards to, you know, how this team operates, how they function internally, how the organization functions, what the attitudes and mindsets of all the coaches are, all the position coaches, non-position coaches, assistant coaches. I mean, it's a complete 360 from where they were just a year ago.
Yes, absolutely. You're absolutely right. And for me, Stefanski's just steady. They win, they lose. He's the same guy all the time, and he's the proverbial adult in the room that was much needed in Cleveland for a long time. You know what I mean? So
yes, he was definitely. He was a student who became the master.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And he's been great and a breath of fresh air. I feel like Baker's done enough. I know you kind of were saying that you weren't really sure with Baker since week 7 up until last week. Really, he had been really good in my opinion. And I think it was like 15 touchdowns to 1 interception for like that period of time, with like a 126 quarterback ranking or something.
Right.
That period of quarterbacking, he was hot. He played in the weather games. He didn't make mistakes, and then he got into some nice weather, and he had a couple really good games, a couple 4 touchdown games, and I felt like that was enough for them to be like, all right, cool, we feel good going into the offseason. We're going to give him that 5th-year option, and we can see where we go from here. And I think that was one of the things that the Browns organization wanted to do when they set out this season, was to be able to say, all right, we need to make some decisions on this guy, and this guy. And Baker was number 1. And I think they can make that decision based on what they've seen.
I think so too, and Baker has really, really matured in a lot of different ways, and I don't know that people want to give Baker Mayfield any type of credit in regards to. Well, that's really, they're actually missing the boat big time. But I think that, you know, he's growing, he's learning, he's steady, he's being patient. He's not necessarily trying to force things. Again, going back to what I was talking about earlier in regards to him not reading defenses, not getting the checkdowns right, things of that nature. It's going to happen to all quarterbacks. I don't care how long you've been in the league. You're trying to force something in there that just may not have existed the minute you released the ball, but you were watching the safety coming over the middle, either to get you or to go after the actual wide receiver or even the tight end. But he's learning, and I think that's going to take a little bit more time in regards to, you know, where he ends up. I didn't know. To be honest, I don't even know if he thought he would end up in the playoffs with this team.
Yeah, it's a great point. It's a great point, and you know, I just feel For him, same thing. Stefanski was the key for him. I feel like they're seeing things through the same lens when they talk. They use the same verbiage, and for me, that's just like the coach. That's the kind of thing you need with your coach and to get that winning formula. All right, couple big picture questions here, Rudy. While I have you, best team in the AFC.
That's tough. Right now, it's got to be the Bills. It's got to be the Bills. They're on fire between Stephon Diggs, and if you're watching Stephon, my sincerest condolences to you in the passing of your dad. I haven't had any close family pass away yet, thank God. But my condolences to you. And if you don't play Sunday, that's okay too. I think fantasy players would understand that. But Josh Allen's been on an absolute tear. When I had covered Wyoming sports, I had a chance to interview his former coach. Coach Bull is absolutely outstanding coach for Wyoming. He had nothing but high praise to say about him. And anybody I'd spoken to about Josh Allen, and he's from Fireball, which is about 30 minutes from where I live right now here in Clovis,
California. The Fireball Files.
Yeah, Fireball Files.
I read the Fireball Files. Yeah.
For Josh
I read
Allen.
them that draft year, yeah.
Yeah, he is. Josh Allen's really true to form. He really is. He's a great guy, solid player, always willing to take advice and criticism from Coach Bull to a point where it just made him a better person, better player, and overall just a better individual to not only be around, but Sean McDermott's put, and I don't think anybody's talking about him for head coach of the year either. He's come in and done an absolute fantastic job helping acquire and putting Stephon Diggs in those positions in order to win. The defense is nothing to shake a stick at. You have so many playmakers on that side of the ball. I think the Bills are the hottest team right now in the AFC, maybe in the NFL.
Yeah, I was going to say probably in the NFL. I still, even though I think that they're the hottest team right now, and probably if they were to play tomorrow, I would probably pick the Bills to beat Kansas City. It's hard to not pick Kansas City to win because I don't really know what they're doing. Like, they've been squeaking by some of these games, right? And it's been kind of ugly lately. But you kind of wonder if they're just kind of playing with you. Like, they do that kind of like, let's hold back this. We don't want to show too much here. And you know how good Mahomes is. It's like, okay, now it's the playoffs. They're going to get their bye week, right? And then they're going to play somebody. And I think they probably look a lot different. I think they're going to rest. They're resting Mahomes this weekend. So he's going to have 3 weeks off before his next game. It's pretty incredible. Nice for Tyreek Hill. He can rest up his hamstring there that keeps bothering him.
Right.
It's hard to not pick them out of the AFC. They're just so explosive. But I agree with you about the Bills. They are on fire right now, and they certainly, in my opinion, are a more complete team than Kansas City as far as defensively and offense. And if Allen can stay as hot as he's been, then they can beat them. But certainly, that's it. That's one we'll have to see play out. That'll be a lot of fun. I would look forward to that matchup if they did face each other in an AFC championship. NFC's a little more tricky. Who do you got atop the NFC?
Oh man, that's tough. I watched that snow game.
Yes.
Packers had taken on the Tennessee Titans, and at first it looked like Green Bay was going to take control over it and stay consistent in the pass rush and be able to tackle that big monster Derrick Henry that just seems to creep up on NFL teams any given week, any given month throughout this NFL season. But I think more importantly, it's really about the team's identity, and I think the Packers have the identity right now. They're really making it known between Aaron Rodgers and another local Fresno guy went to Fresno State. Also making his name very well known right now, and the community's chomping at the bit. They're talking about it on the news, and I work for CBS 47, so I get to hear about it quite often. But I think that when you look at the Packers, they just look really, really good. They have some run-stopping issues that they need to solve for. I got to take the Packers. I just it's hard to go against Aaron Rodgers. You see him do it week in and week out with very little resistance. Of course, you talk about the MVP race. That could also have a lot to do with why Aaron Rodgers is trying to stay ahead of the proverbial pack, if you will, in that MVP conversation. But Josh Allen,
I think he's got it
there as well. I do too. I think he's done enough.
I think he has to. I think it's Rodgers' MVP, and I would say, as of right now, I would pick Green Bay, and I would say that with the Saints as a close second, depending on what happens at quarterback there. We'll see. You got to keep an eye on Tampa Bay. I don't know what they're going to be in the playoffs. They've been kind of disappointing throughout the season. I feel like they haven't really lived up to the talent and potential that they have on that team, but they've done enough to get there. So let's see what they do now, right?
Well, yeah, basically, I mean, when you're talking about Tampa Bay, there's a bunch of hype. So we're going to bring Gronkowski in. People were already, buying the jerseys, saying the Buccaneers are going to go to the Super Bowl and X, Y, and Z and ABC. And then all of a sudden, the interceptions from Tom Brady came into play. And then they became a consistent amount of interceptions every single time he touched the field. So it really makes you wonder whether or not they have that type of chemistry that can help take them down the line. I don't think it's quite there yet. I'm thinking maybe in 2021, they may have a better leash in regards to who their go-to guy is. They need another running back. Fournette's been nothing but disappointing on that line. And then you look at Mike Evans, who's been on an absolute tear. But the interceptions from Tom Brady has been one of the reasons why they've been slacking hard. And you can name Bruce Arians the quarterback whisperer. I don't know. I think you need to do some – and there could be some argument matches going on with him raising his voice as high as he could. In order to get through Tom Brady's skull, that he's a coach and that he needs to do something a little bit different. And this is not Bill Belichick's system. So I don't know. Could that conversation have happened? Maybe so. And then
more than likely, I think.
More likely than not, I'd probably suspect behind closed doors. But of course, in front of me, we're the best of friends. No, I don't think so. Speaking of best of friends, you look at the New Orleans Saints. Drew Brees doesn't look very comfortable in the pocket right now. And for obvious reasons why. You break 8 ribs, would you be comfortable in the pocket?
No.
Probably not. I think, moreover, when you look at Drew Brees, you look at his throwing motion and the fact that he can't get that ball over his shoulder to a point where those ribs are going to be in line and not broken in order to feel comfortable making that plays. I pray to God he doesn't take another smackdown hit, because if that happens, he's done. He'll never play another down of football again. But I could be wrong.
Yeah. I mean, he also, Rudy, I mean, he wasn't able to throw the ball 30 yards before that happened. So, their whole entire offense is, restricted within 25 yards and in, basically. But the crazy thing is they've been able to dismantle teams still doing it that way with, even knowing that they don't have anybody to take the top off, and you can't, you don't even have to respect the deep ball. Sean Payton has still been able to stretch the field, horizontally and still, keep teams off balance and dismantle most teams they play. I mean, his offense is a weapon in itself. No matter who's running quarterback. So even if they have to go to another guy, depending on who they want to go to or what their situation is.
Jameis Winston, you can go either way with those guys. But don't forget the high-end skill position players like Kamara.
Yep. Kamara, Michael Thomas. Yeah, so you got it'll be interesting. I like their defense too. So I think the Saints have a chance. We'll see what happens with Breeze and whatnot. But all right, so your prediction was Steelers by a field goal. All right, so Vegas has this spread at like 10 points for the Browns. Do they think that? Why do you think that is? Why so big on the spread?
Well, I think people are probably giving Mason Rudolph no credit
based on Rudolph.
I mean, just based on the fact alone that he has had not enough reps, not enough to really speak of in regards to playtime, familiarity with the offense. Just because you're a bookworm in the classroom doesn't necessarily mean that's going to translate onto the field. That doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to have the ability to execute once you get out on the field with that playbook strapped to your wrist. And I think they're expecting more players to come back from COVID for Cleveland. But when you have two more people who are out, stated today, I don't know. I really don't know.
I don't know either, man.
And I think that's one of the reasons I think why the line still remains exactly what it is right now. Now that line may change, and that gap could be smaller and smaller as a game gets closer. But I still think there's going to be a spread. I think people are going to pick Cleveland because Ben Roethlisberger's not under center.
I would agree with you there. It's a big one. It's an absolutely huge week here, Rudy. I can't thank you so much for your time, man. Plug your show. Where we obviously go to. You can go to the rudedogshow.com.
Yeah. Go to the rudedogshow.com. You can find me on Twitter. Find me on LinkedIn. You can follow me on Instagram. I guess the question is, where am I not? And that would be everywhere. So yeah.
Well, you're on All Eyes on Cleveland right now, and we thank you so much for coming on to talk some Steelers with us, get us the inside scoop on everything going on Pittsburgh. So, hey, you're scaring me. You scared me more. I was feeling good about Mason Rudolph till I talked to you. Now you're making. I'm a little worried now. About Mason. So, so good job on that, and great job. And obviously we'll have you back on the show, right?
Yeah, of course. Absolutely. We could talk about it post game, and just because I'm a fan doesn't mean that I'm not objective, because that's one thing people should know about me is that I am objective and I call it like it is, whether it's my team or somebody else's.
Well, I know you're an absolute stud on your show, and you're everywhere, and you kill the coverage. So we appreciate you coming on and spending some time with us here tonight on a big Browns Steelers week. So go check him out. He is Rude Dog Reyes, and of the Rude Dog Show. Go to the rudedogshow.com or where all popular podcasts are found. Thank you so much, Rudy.
Appreciate it, Brad. Thanks a lot, man. Happy New Year to you. And everybody
Happy New Year. Hey, you got any New Year's resolutions?
I had one when it turned 2020, but that soon got flushed down the toilet. 2021 resolution is for COVID to go away and for everybody to get back to normalcy.
Hey, you said it, brother. You said it. That should be everybody's. All right. Take it easy, man. You're a good man, gentleman, and a scholar, and we thank you.
Thank you very much. Take care.
Rudy, the Rude Dog Reyes, joining us tonight to get us caught up on some Steelers. He likes Mason Rudolph. He likes Mason Rudolph to threaten with the long ball. I don't think much of Mason Rudolph as a quarterback, but I don't know him like Rudy does. So, And we all know everything that happened with Mason and Garrett last year, and people land on both sides of that thing. I think naturally Browns fans kind of land on the Garrett side, like, hey, he probably may have said something inappropriate there, and I think a lot of Steelers fans and people kind of land on the other side, like, hey, what an animal Myles Garrett is. But Myles Garrett up for Man of the Year for the Browns this year for his tremendous work with Water Boys and everything else. So he has bounced back and moved on from that incident tremendously. I hope that his name does not get dragged through the mud here with the narratives coming up to this game this weekend. But Rudy thinks Mason Rudolph can get it done against the Browns and has them, the Steelers, winning by a field goal. So that's your take from the Steelers side of things. Keys to the game here real quick, and we'll get you up and out here on All Eyes on Cleveland. We appreciate you watching and listening. But keys to the game here, a couple things I wanted to comment on first. The absence of Jarvis Landry has never been more apparent than it was this week without him out there. He is the heart and soul of this team. He 100% has to be there. and has to be a long-term part of this solution for the Browns. He does everything for them. He is the motivator, the leader. He's in the right spot all the time. He blocks great. He's a perfect example for the young players on this team, and probably one of the most pivotal acquisitions that the Browns ever made in making this whole turnaround. Started with Jarvis Landry in my book. So he is the guy, and you saw how much he was missed last week, certainly. I worry about what's going to happen at safety, and I want to make this comment real quick. Cujo, Carl Joseph is key to have on the field. He's been everywhere. He's been huge for that defense. He comes up in the box and plays the run well. He has played the pass well. He has been everywhere. One of the few bright spots in that defense at times. Carl Joseph, need to have him out there. Get him off the list. I know he's just a contact trace, so he should be available for Sunday as long as he doesn't test positive. So having him out there is crucial. Ronnie Harrison potentially could be back, was supposed to practice today, as well as Wyatt Teller. So if you get Ronnie Harrison, Wyatt Teller, and you get these wide receivers as well as like Carl Joseph coming off the COVID list in time for this game, I feel good about it. Practice squad player today, and coach, I believe, in the special teams room. Positive tests. We'll see what happens tomorrow. You hold your breath every day waiting for that, what's going to come down. But I don't think anybody else was added to the list. Well, we found out this morning, the guys that were added to the list. We know Sendejo is out with a positive test, and Goodson had a positive test. He's going to be out again. So everybody else has been contact traced, and those guys should be available for the game Sunday, as long as tomorrow we don't go through this again, which we very well could, because, as I said to George earlier in the show, 23, Sendejo, who usually isn't close enough to anybody to give anybody a disease the way he plays defense, but was on the plane, traveled to and from, and probably what could have been that incubation period where you're shedding the virus and you aren't aware of it yet. So that's a little scary. And now that you're seeing these other positive tests pop up, you would think that maybe that might be where that stems from. We'll find out more about that tomorrow. If they're gonna play Ronnie Harrison, that's great. If they get Carl Joseph back, that's great. If they're forced to play another safety, to me, with Sendejo out, it cannot be Sheldrick Redwine. You have how long have you had an opportunity now to get Tedrick Thompson ready, who knows the Seattle cover 3 scheme anyways? He should be playing over Redwine, who frankly looks timid on the field to me. He doesn't tackle well. He's very slow to react. You know, I say this about Sendejo all the time, that he is reactionary, never anticipatory, and Redwine follows quickly in his footsteps that way. I don't think that he's a very good player at this point. I don't know how long he is for the Browns roster. Hopefully he proves me wrong, but I would feel much better if Carl Joseph and Ronnie Harrison are out there. I think that's the way you got to go if they're both healthy. And if not, I don't understand why we can't see some of Tedrick Thompson. He's got to be better than what Redwine is doing, which is not much. Keys to the game. You got to jump on him early. You can't let this game stay close into the second half. I feel like that Stefanski knows this, and I feel like they'll come out with a good combination of run pass, maybe 6 throws, 4 runs in the first 10 plays. They'll have a good game script to start it out, but you want to get a couple touchdowns early, maybe pushing the ball down the field, depending on who's in it. Secondary, identify those weaknesses, take advantage of that. He's been great at that all year. He's kept teams off balance. You should be able to run the ball against this team. The Colts certainly ran the ball against this team. So should you, especially if you have Wyatt Teller back and healthy. I feel like you should be able to run the ball and get some push against the Steelers team. I feel like they need to jump on him early. I feel like you need at least one interception from Mason Rudolph. You have to win that turnover battle, but you got to take one away from him. Get some pressure on him. He'll throw it to the other team. And I think that's the keys to the game right there. Win the turnover battle, and more importantly, jump on this team early. Don't let them stick around and keep it close. You've been watching All Eyes on Cleveland. Huge thanks to George Wrighster III for our first guest, giving us a national perspective on everything, and then also Rudy, the Rude Dog Reyes, giving us the Pittsburgh Steeler perspective. Another tremendous episode here of All Eyes on Cleveland. Huge thanks to Blue Wire Hustle, where we now reside, and this has been All Eyes on Cleveland. Mikey on the ones and twos, your gentleman and scholar. My name is Brad Ward, and with that, go Browns, must win, time to get in, end this drought. They're going to do it. They're going to do it. You can rest easy. You can rest easy. They're getting in. Don't worry. They win on Sunday by 17. At least 2 touchdowns they win by. Browns getting in. 2020 playoff team. All Eyes on Cleveland. My name is Brad Ward. Thanks to Mike on the ones and twos. Thanks to our guests. We are out.